Welcome back, everyone. My name is Úna Brosnan.
I'm John MaCaskill.
And welcome back to the ReVolting Podcast. So, John, we had a really good conversation with Jonathan Cole in our last episode. It was really interesting just to get outside our bubble as such and hear from others on where we are in the energy situation, I'll call it right now.
No, it is. It's because, we enjoy our conversations and we hope others do too. But having someone else in with their unique sort of ideas. And this was fun for me because I loved the episode we did with Rebecca Shirley because it was on an area that is totally new for me and it's fascinating. Of course, this was kind of home turf, a little bit,
absolutely,
a little bit home turf. We both know Jonathan, but through that lens, because I've not been a CEO. I don't remember. Have I? No, I've not been a CEO of two major developers. Or this. So the lens that Jonathan brought was really interesting for me. So I thoroughly enjoyed that, especially with so much happening.
Yeah.
At the moment in energy and geopolitics.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of geopolitics, we have a really good conversation today, and we could be here forever talking about the geopolitics. I think it's been a trilogy, a comedy, a tragedy,
an entire series.
God knows what else, and there's probably a whole second series on it as well to come. But trying to unpack that today, I think it'd be really interesting. We touched on a little bit around, the turbines, the geopolitics around what's happening in the Middle East, but very much, I suppose, again, the big debate on the North Sea oil and gas side. What we'd like to do today is, I suppose, go a little deeper into that and really bring it back into everyday life and what's happening with us at the minute, and looking at some of the events that happened over the last days and weeks. It's not even months at this point. It's
about exposure. So it's really hard to ignore this energy shock, whether it's in our pockets, whether it's on X, whether it's on the news. He's not the only orange man who's got a problem with the Pope, I believe.
No.
But we can't ignore it.
Yeah.
It's hitting us. So what I thought our idea for today was to basically try and unpack this around from this, shock, this, which is, regional but not regional, and how that impacts effectively our wallets and our systems. So that's what we wanted to try and explore today, or at least give it a go.
Absolutely. And for me personally anyway, I think it's about explaining it to people, on that are not necessarily involved in the energy side, because we're seeing a lot of pain. Looking back home, I was home in the last few weeks and looking at what's happened in the protests in Ireland around the fuel side. You're obviously seeing it in Northern Ireland and the UK as well. But I suppose this is where it's really starting to resonate in everyone's life at the minute, and really hitting it from a food security perspective, an energy perspective. And, livelihoods are at stake at this point. So trying to give a little bit of background to those who might not be familiar with the energy sector and the geopolitics around that. So without further ado,
let's
get
stuck
in. So I suppose, look, very much orientated watching what's happening in the Middle East at the minute, and we're all, I think there isn't a person out there that doesn't know what the Strait of Hormuz is or where it is at this point. It's been one of the key geography lessons, I think, for everyone. But looking at what oil tankers mean globally, the impact of that strait and how it's affecting everyone, and really, really resonating on a global perspective. I think there's very little countries globally that are not affected at the minute. And this isn't about just the war. It's very much oriented on how quickly this turned into an energy security issue, how it turned into, an issue around food, discussion around how we support our farmers, particularly around getting access into fertilizers, and looking at the chemical side as well. So it isn't even just about energy, it's more about scarcity and our exposure, very much orientated around that that scarcity and the energy side. So I suppose let's maybe get a little unpack that element a little bit more. So what are your thoughts, John, over the last few weeks? I mean, what's drawn you in, I suppose, and what's captured your eye? I mean, we all look at the energy side. As a whole, what is your take on it? So, I mean,
we'll start off at the top, which is why this shock matters, I suppose, is the so this has came pretty much hot off the heels of 2022, which was an energy shock. That one was quite regional. So, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Europe was heavily reliant on gas flows from Russia, and that had a massive impact to us. Now, that resulted in a number of things being done in Europe. Now, this is different. It's not in Europe. In fact, we don't take a large percentage. So, I mean, there's about 20% of the world's gas or something comes from the Strait of Hormuz. Most of that goes to Asia. But what this demonstrates is that we've moved from a reliance from that supplier to an exposure very much on a global level, because the gas that is not going to Asia, they then buy on the market, and there could be an LNG carrier coming to Europe that gets turned around and goes back because it's the highest bidder, so it's price. So basically we are exposed to this price shock. So you get the price shock before you start running out of gas anyway. So we've removed our sort of addiction, our reliance on that one supplier, and we're now exposed to a global gas market that's not just gas market, but all the products that are revolved that comes out of the Strait of Hormuz, because we'll talk about some of the other stuff that this impacts as well. So for me, it's another. Every shock is different. The 73, the early 70s, 22, it's all different, but it all tells us the same thing, which is that we're reliant on, that we were exposed to something that could be impacted negatively in terms of the supply. So we're relying on supply, so we don't have security. So that's at a very high level before we start seeing what it impacts. The thing that annoys me is that yes, we have moved on, so we are more resilient in Europe than we were in 22, without a shadow of a doubt. We've just created some different dependencies or different exposures. But do we ever go far enough?
Or have we just replaced another dependency?
Yeah, and do we go far enough actually, or are we kind of hitting the snooze button? A bit too much, you know what I mean? So deal with it. Like, we've sorted out the short term issues. We've done a couple of bits, and all of a sudden we're surprised when the next when the next one hits. Absolutely.
And you're seeing, like, what's really grabbing people's attention is because that war is so far away this time, Ukraine was on our doorstep, that the impact, the severity of the impact it's having on our bills here is quite sharp, and how that could come to fruition. I suppose my frustration is and I will say I wasn't hugely familiar with the Strait of Hormuz in that much detail, and I don't know. But I was amazed that, like, looking at this and looking at saying where we had the maybe the Houthis in the last 18 months causing restrictions on, say, the Red Sea and the Suez, that we didn't see this coming, or we didn't have elements of preparedness there, particularly around, getting a pipeline through. It would have been a short distance through a relatively I suppose friendly Oman to get something out into open seas. We missed a trick. It feels like we've missed a trick.
We built a system that was very friendly to the market. That then exposes how fragile it is. Because basically, if you control a bottleneck or a pinch point, you control everything. And it's international waters. But there is now, there's basically a conflict over managing that pinch point and that bottleneck. And, this is not about how that came about or the rights and wrongs. It's just about the fact that it is and what the impact is on us in terms of energy. So I think we've just built, it's been exposed how fragile our system that still is, our energy system, it still is today. how fragile it is.
Yeah, and what can we do? Like, we are in the mess we're in now, and it's a case of, I suppose, is this going to push us forward or backwards in how we debate energy, or how we resist future shocks or continuation of the shock? Because we certainly are seeing Mr. Orange not exactly give us too many options in trying to find a moment of diplomacy. I'm holding my breath here at the minute, but I mean, what can we do? Is this going to be...
Well, the
continuing for our bills.
The thing is that we've agreed that we are exposed. Mm-hmm. We've agreed that there seems to be an alarm that goes off every time we sort of you have this. We do a number of things which are all good. We then muck about. We panic at the edges, but nothing fundamentally changes because we've got a price shock. At the end of the day, we've got a price shock.
Yeah.
Right. So, regardless of where it comes from. The stuff at the petrol tank's going up, food's going to be going up, so nothing has changed in that. We've just, I mean, so we're exposed. So why is the UK exposed, and how different are we from, say, France and Spain in terms of exposure? Let's start digging into this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the UK, I suppose, look, we've been caught on the hop, to be honest, a little bit. Our infrastructure hasn't followed the pace of the generation side and the development side. Particularly, you're seeing, trying to get business cases over the line for the likes of offshore wind. But I would say, it's not solely offshore wind. Some of the onshore projects as well are suffering because they're at the back of things called tenuous charges, or basically transmission charges, which is making it very, very difficult at the minute to secure connections and also to secure your business case because of the escalation in those transmission side. We obviously do have the energy mix is shaking up quite a bit in the UK, and I suppose that the dynamics around that are showing some fractures in the likes of Spain and Portugal. Spain and France. You've seen high concentrations of penetration of solar and wind on the onshore side, particularly in Spain, and then obviously the inclusion of nuclear then in the French side. And you've got quite established nuclear facilities in there. We'll say new nuclear coming in at a higher price, but because they've got that legacy in the background, it is supporting them. And the interconnection side is, they are the mainland. They've got options around interconnection. I will say, the likes of Spain has seen its hiccups. You've seen the grid go down, and by no means, I don't think that's going to be the first time we're going to see a grid going down. I think we need to get that investment in and making sure that we have that exposure. But at the end of the day, we're exposed to global market and global market pricing of oil and gas.
And we're exposed to it until we don't use it.
Yeah. And
to me, one of the challenges we've got in the UK is, so you mentioned the generation side. So about 31%.
Yeah.
Is still reliant on gas,
yeah,
which also drives the market price.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, I don't have a heat source pump, right? So I'm one of the, in England, about 86% of all housing stock is gas central heated in some way.
Yeah.
I'm in Scotland and I've got a gas central heater.
Same here.
Future proof supposedly with hydrogen, but that's
putting on extra jumpers.
Yeah. So but basically that is a difficult thing to move. So I mean, we're an industry, we build offshore wind farms. We've got industry colleagues that do onshore wind farms and battery energy storage and solar and stuff. But getting people off gas boilers it's not sexy.
No.
Right? But it seems to be a difficult bloody thing that the government hasn't sorted yet. No government's sorted yet. So that means that even if we get to marginal elements of gas in the power sector and we sort of, change the market price, it's still going to hit our energy bills because we're so exposed.
Yeah.
So I think the UK has an inherent real difficult problem that we need to, and that's beyond, and that's before you get to transportation and other stuff as well. So we are significantly exposed in the UK. I think it was the World Bank said that we're probably out of the G20 or something. We're going to be the most impacted economy.
Yes, yeah, you're
by
right.
the thing, this must be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, so have we? So have we just reduced, we've not reduced the risk, we've just
transitioned it to one side.
To somewhere else.
Yeah, it's. I mean, for me, it's. I feel like we've just, since the Ukraine crisis, we've really kind of almost hit the snooze button, as you referenced before. We've kind of went, look, that was really, really hard. We'll park that one for a while. We probably won't see another geopolitical.
Well, we've sorted that. We just get it in from Qatar now.
Get it in from Qatar. But even like you look at, and this is something which was in the press more recently in the likes of, I'll give an example from home, was the refinery side. And looking at Ireland has got quite a bit of capacity on the refinery side for petrol. But actually with the fuel crisis, it was diesel that was missing. And we thought we were scaling back on the diesel. I will say I have had a diesel car. It's recently transitioned. But the exposure on the volume of diesel required, but then also the volume of refinery that's availability, the capacity in the markets. And similarly here in the UK as well, looking at elements like that, it's really going right through our supply chain. But then you bring it into the likes of food security. And I did not realise that the amount of fertilizer that's coming out of the Middle East and the dependency we have on that, which then triggers into your food security side. We would have talked about Ukraine as being the breadbasket for Europe and Africa, and actually it had quite a bit of reach. How did we manage to get ourselves into another dependency so quickly? How were we not looking at this from a holistic perspective? And I suppose, is this something as governments, as EU, collectively in Europe, we need to be looking at more robust systems and processes on taking that higher view on whether it's energy or food or it's shipping as such, and the routes and how they're changing? I do think we need to probably get out of that government cyclic approach and maybe bring it up to a more stable, longer term view. It's going to be, I think Jonathan mentioned it the other week when he was talking about the energy transition side, that in the short term, it's actually going to impact renewables. So if you wider out, I think at the moment, in the short term, it's going to be incredibly messy. So you've got countries in Asia, going back to thermal coal a little bit. You've got even Germany doing a little bit of thermal coal. I think governments need to do what you need to do in the short term. It's just, that's what they do. So it becomes really messy. My worry is that the crisis eases. Yeah. And they go, phew. They undo all the little things, the little subsidies they've put in, the caps they've put in, all this kind of stuff, and go, phew. And they get hit by the same thing again. Yeah. And the issue is that this one is quite different from Ukraine, because you've got the fuel, the energy, the gas. You've got food with the fertilizers, which, as you said, urea, ammonia, a whole bunch of things that comes out of there. You've got this. You've then got the shipping and logistical costs, because basically all of a sudden things will have to be transported maybe further. You've got costs of shipping, you've got things being transported further, and then you've got insurance and finance, right? So there's almost like three waves of things, and as you said, to really try and to properly address these, we need to be looking at things properly in government. So yes, sort out what you need to do. Yeah. Do what you need to do to get over the next year or whatever it is. And then try and sort this out. But going back to what you said about the impact on people, that's the UK and the West, isn't it? Yeah. I was reading, I can't remember, it's not on this page, and it's going to take me 5 minutes of looking down to change it. But basically, there was, we'll stick it in the show notes, right? We'll stick these sources in the show notes. But basically, a week ago, the estimate is that this could easily put another 45 million people globally into poverty. Yeah, which is shocking.
Absolutely shocking. Because the West, richer nations have shock absorbers by their affluence. Yeah. Right? Things will cost a bit more. And there's people in society that won't be able to cover that. So I'm not making a broad brush statement on that. But there's societies, there's countries that this will hit really badly. Food, fertilizer costs go up. Yep. People that are on ridiculously low monthly salaries, the price of a Costa, which is sickening, that kind of thing, that is a massive impact to them.
Yeah.
And this has a massive impact.
Yeah. And I mean, from a social perspective, we talk about the divide and the growing divide between the rich and the poor, even here in the UK. But actually looking at it from, as you say, at a country level, some of the island nations are particularly being hit here, particularly, I suppose, those dependent. And one springs to mind is Mauritius as an example. And I could pull numerous island communities. They don't have the land space or the land mass basically to have a strong high concentration of renewables, or they've just been heavily dependent on oil and gas based, or
everything imported, basically
imported. I mean, some of like the likes of Mauritius is 100% import on oil based products. So how are you seeing that then? It's a case of everything right across that island is such as being hit by a price a rise. You're seeing impacts then on actually travel in there, the cost of food. I was so shocked. I have a colleague who I worked with off the back of the shadow board in Renewable UK. She's Mauritian, and she was telling me about she brings home broccoli. Maybe I shouldn't say that from a border control perspective, but she brings broccoli home.
Don't mention
Her
the name,
family
and that'll be fine.
Love it, absolutely love it. But it's so expensive on the island.
I know, it's
something something we take for granted here in Europe, that can cost such a price, I suppose, disproportionately in Mauritius, which is hugely disappointing. But like, even if you bring it down to the human level, even for that individual to travel home, will they be able to get back more regularly or less regularly? Are they going to have to? Mauritius is very heavily weighted towards routing its flights through the likes of the Middle East as well. So that's going to disrupt from a air traffic perspective. Not to mind the shipping side. Although I think maybe with the shipping and the Red Sea again disrupted, actually in some cases it may actually help the cause with some of the further shipping having to go around the Horn of Africa quite a bit more even. But you are seeing that gap widening, and that's quite a concern. What we're trying to do is minimise that, and we're trying to minimise the global impact and bring these communities together. They will not have the money in country then to invest in renewables and get them off the addiction to oil-based products or gas-based products, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I think there's that there is going to be a cut. I mean, because there's large more affluent island nations in Southeast Asia and stuff like this, but then there's these more totally different in terms of that level of industrialization or resources, right? And they just don't. I mean, I don't know how much room they've got to maneuver. I mean, they've got virtually no room to maneuver. I think
it's 80% of their island capacity is on oil or gas, which is 100% imported. They do have some elements of biogas from sugarcane, basically, and some penetration of solar and onshore solar and wind, but it's very, very small. And then, of course, because of their position globally, you don't have that connection or interconnection like we do. We're lucky to have in the likes of Europe. Or you see in the US as well. But look, I think it's bringing it down. Look, some of the poorest households are really feeling the energy shock here. And it's how do they absorb that right now? How are we going to change the dynamics around that and making sure that we can bring equity in? I don't think there's an easy answer right now, but it's
not. I think it's a colder world than it was a few years ago, which is awful. But I think it's I mean, we're seeing. I mean, the thing that's not going to help is we see international institutions weakening at this point. Yeah. Right now, the whole point of that was to try and bring that kind of equanimity, sort of a justice or law, international law to things. It's not a good the rise of what we're seeing in terms of sort of sovereignty becoming more important, energy security, making sure that your region or your country doesn't help these smaller places at all.
Yeah,
so it's very worrying. But you touched on sort of, their exposure to oil and gas and or fossils, and and some of the renewables that they can do. I mean, let's track back and look at the energy transition here. I mean, so how does this? I mean, there's been a lot of media and stuff around this, but I mean, how do you see this impacting energy security over the short and medium term?
Yeah, I mean, from energy security perspective, it's very much in the crosshairs at the minute. I think we've got a lot of exposure, but I think there's elements we can do in the short term, like looking at decentralized energy renewables in particular. You're seeing a lot of households now really lean into rooftop solar or whatever, ground mounted, whatever it may be. I know from personal family experience, we certainly have seen a number of our extended family get those solar panels up fairly lively, and they mightn't have looked at it otherwise, or it would have been quick enough. But like, it makes sense, going back to your point there on the heat pumps. We probably looked at it a little bit too much in isolation. We needed to be looking at combining, bringing that flexibility in. We're seeing the grid, say, with the likes of the build out in the UK at the minute, and the importance of making sure that we have flex in there and having that pivot. We've seen exposure as well around, say, resilience during storms. And I think this is starting to sharpen the focus and making sure that we think of plan B, which we haven't been good at by no means. We are making isolated decisions, which we need to have backups and start maybe scenario planning a couple of these in our background. I think you'll probably see a lot of individuals starting to think about, off the grid and what would it look like and how would I survive a storm if it came in this way. That's going to be the reality.
I mean, it's certainly a rural thing, but I mean, if you're in an urban built up environment, off the grid in an apartment, 4C.
Well, get out your jumpers in Glasgow. I think it is. It's very quickly. But I mean, it opened up quite a bit of exposure, and I suppose a lot of food for thought with Storm Owen coming in last year in particular. Well, the west of Ireland took an awful brunt of it. The Scotland took a huge brunt of it as well. I mean, it was a red storm, from, if memory serves me right. But like, if you've got an EV, which, after a week of grid outages, your EV is well dead at that point. But if you had a little bit of rooftop solar and you had a little bit of weather, you will get something. But making sure that you've got plan B there, you've got resilience in what stores you have, whether it's food or just being able to just get over those 5 days. They do this in the likes of Florida. They think about plan B. It might be a diesel generator in some cases in Florida, but they do think about this a little bit more because of the hurricanes you get in. I mean, I know, quite say you'll have full resilience around a Cat 5, but certainly around Cat 3 and 4, they have that thought process. And I do think we need to drive a little bit more resilience into us here. From an energy transition perspective, I think this will hurry it up. We need to think faster. We need our policy and infrastructure to follow suit and make sure that, particularly the grid infrastructure, gains pace and it's pushed through at this point within reason. Needs to be balanced as well, but making sure that we are supporting that build out, because generation has probably got ahead of it, and obviously our market design needs quite a bit of looking at. Particularly in the north of Scotland, when you're exploring tenuous charges, but it comes down to the end. It's energy mix. We need to start driving resilience in our energy mix, and whether that's a bit of offshore wind or onshore solar, oil and gas from the North Sea, or it's nuclear. I think that's where we need to find the balance.
I think mix. Yeah, so I think you're right with mix. I think also a system approach. Yeah. Which is kind of the same thing, but a system approach. Yeah. And also I think it's. I mean, so I am perfectly okay with nuclear, 100% okay with nuclear if you can get it built and if you can finance it
at the right price.
I'm absolutely,
and that goes for everything.
Fine. Yeah, and that goes for everything. Now the thing is though, right? If a country is really, really serious about energy security and sovereignty, that ain't cheap.
Yeah.
The cheapest system you can have on a day-to-day basis will be probably the most fragile.
Yeah.
Which as soon as you stress test like we've had, that's when it all falls down.
Yeah.
So the most resilient, the most secure will not be cheap.
Absolutely.
And is that a cost potentially that, do you think we're willing to, as a society, are we willing to pay that kind of, a bill that's going to be that needs?
Yeah, and I mean, the real cost of that hasn't become apparent yet. I think we really need to lean into that. And I think, can we afford to pay it is the other thing at the minute, because we've been hit with so many shocks. How do we rebalance some of the costing structure, I think, is going to be really important. But I don't think we can shy away from the cost. I do think we need to, number one, we need evidence-based to make sure that we can get these business cases, but we need to work with communities. And we talk about communications and outreach and making sure that we can work with communities and the general public to understand the why and the where we can flex and how we attack this one. I think driving that equity, whether it's diversification basically in fuels, at home or in wider industry, but also building resilient supply chain and making sure that, we can take that shock out of the supply chain. We're not going on a boom and bust. We are unfortunately seeing a lot of supply chain under pressure at the minute because of that cost differential, where it's, the likes of, your hauliers at the minute because of the fuel, they are hugely important for our food security perspective. How do we deal with that? Is it a transition with looking at how we modify some of our policies from an excise or tax perspective, and then couple it up with trying to drive electrification or alternative modes for driving more fuel efficiency, or looking at other alternatives into the fleet. The grid storage, I mean, we talked about the flexibility. I think that's going to be key, and looking at that distribution. Distribution, looking at, say, that rooftop solar, I think is going to be key as well. But paying for this, it will not be cheap. It will not. We're already.
No, it won't. And this is the thing. It's. I mean, I think we need to be honest. We need to have an honest discussion as as a nation, as a region, as an EU on this, because either we don't care for energy security as much as we say, and we accept the crisis every 5 or 10 years.
I don't think my nerves could take it, a crisis every 5-10 years at this
point. No, I know.
It's hard to.
Theoretically, there is a theoretical or academic view that actually is that a more cost effective thing over the long term than.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Than the high cost. Now, I don't know why I thought. I disagree with that, but but kind of that's the world we're in. Yeah. Because we don't sort it, but I mean, so. You've convinced me, by the way, because as you know, I moved house in December.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And because it's a new house, that's got solar panels on it, and I've got an EV charger, though I've only got a hybrid at the moment. But I don't have storage. Yeah. I don't have storage. And that is, that's a plan. That's a plan B, because I mean, it's great, I can trickle it, but actually I could store it. Yeah. And use it a little bit more.
And it's funny, that came really to the forefront around that storm Owen, because a lot of domestic homes had the solar, but they didn't have the battery. Yeah. And I think there's an education element to it there that was missed out. Whereas now, I think if you have that conversation around getting solar, you're probably advised a little sharper, because that plan B was brought in. But it should have been there from the start. The economics, the balancing of that should have been.
And a sensible view of a new home should include that as well, because it should be a system. Yeah. It should be like a much more energy resilient property.
I remember being at a conference. Actually, it was an onshore conference by Scottish Renewables, and this was probably.
While you're chatting, I'm getting the
8-9 years ago. You're going for a sweet. So basically, I remember there was a gentleman in from, and I'm not familiar with this, but there was a guy from Red Dwarf, and he was talking about down at the Cotswolds.
Red Dwarf, brilliant.
Yeah, he was really, really good, actually. But he was talking about, the interconnection and the storage facility between his electric EV. He had a I think it was like a slimline dishwasher he was talking about, equivalent size, for a battery in his kitchen. And then they were talking about how this community was one of the pilot areas for this back in, we must have been 8-10 years ago now. But it's funny how long that took. And now we're only dawning into this. So, there's a gap there as well. How do we fill that knowledge gap? How do we accelerate and lean into things like this? And I mean, even if we look at, say, going back to the Ukraine war, how the tables have turned very quickly on the technology perspective, where we're looking to Ukraine for their technology, for the likes of, or we as in the US are looking at the technology that's used in drones to support some of the conflict in the Middle East right now. But how that table has turned so quickly, we probably wouldn't have seen that before. The technology, because of what's happening in Ukraine, has escalated and advanced so much that it has had, again, going back to that leapfrogging side, it's completely jumped. And, where the superpower was has now gone, can we have some help, please? Which is quite refreshing.
I mean, sticking with the energy transition side, it just, while you were speaking there, it reminded me of something again that we got from Jonathan's, which was we were chatting about the different drivers of renewables. You know how, because we were chatting about that, climate, carbon, and stuff like this. I mean, renewables isn't just low carbon. In this environment of security, that's actually about control. Mm-hmm. If you have generation with renewables, local renewables, whether that's national, local, or regional, local, that brings control. Yeah. And that has a decent price control, going back to the energy security side. Yeah. And that's something you don't get with fossil fuels, unless you're a you're a petro state, which we're not. Yeah. So I think the potential for the energy transition, as you said, over the medium to long term is incredibly strong. It just underlines again that we need to electrify our economies. Yeah.
And we need to electrify, but we need stability. And going back to that, it's driving stability and reducing the impact if a shock comes. I'm really hoping there isn't a shock every 3 to 5 years.
What makes a system less volatile? What can make a system less volatile or more resilient? Because it's the same thing, isn't it? More resilient in this case, we mean less volatile. Yeah. So what can make what aspects of a system? Yeah, I suppose it's like at a national level, at a UK level.
I suppose decoupling a little bit from those international hotspots, or diversifying as much as we can. I mean, the mix, going back to that mix. I mean, how we've got 20% of oil coming out of the Strait of Hormuz, but how you're looking at going, where's the rest of the 80%? If we all scaled back by 20%, would we not?
A lot of it's across at drill land, is it?
Possibly, yeah. God love us. But. Not going there for my LNG quite yet, but I hope not anyway. But yeah, absolutely. I think it's decoupling and making sure that we can stand on our own 2 feet, whether it's from an energy perspective or a supply chain perspective, and just being smarter in how we diversify. I do think we need to put time into thinking where we buy our products from, whether it's food, it's components, or it's energy itself.
There was an interesting thing on the radio I was listening to about supermarkets, and they were sort of talking about that parts of the supermarkets should be moved toward. Now, I don't know if they're talking about whether a supermarket's doing this or not, or whether it's theoretical, but it was basically where an area is just what is produced this month. So in other words, it's a how, because when you go to Apples, it's always Apples there. If you go to this, it's always there. So it's like, and there's a cost to that, because in the UK, not everything is grown locally yet, so you can imagine the transport cost of some of these things go up and down. If you could see a bar chart above the products. So they were saying there should be an area that's just for that. And they were talking about, Lidl's kind of does that with the anything aisle, but it's all products. It's basically they just buy. There's is it Lidl or is it Aldi? This I'm sure.
I think both actually.
Is it both? Yeah. They've got this aisle that basically, obviously, the buyer says, "I've just bought 200 fishing rods," so they shove 200 fishing rods in it. But it's like food. Yep. Right. So basically, seasonal, local, and it's just in crates or something, and it's just there, and then we get used to, cooking with stuff that's seasonal again. I mean, that's what I was brought up with, seasonal food. I'm sounding really old.
I know.
I remember the days
with your Motorhead jellies next
with
to
you.
But do you know actually who's really? I always noticed the French are really good at that. They always have been brilliant at it, going back to their roots, and that side.
Yeah, but we've. I think the English speaking. I think we're suffering from being part of the English speaking world.
Yeah.
When it comes to processed food, because it's a product.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, to bring this to conclusion, we've been talking about this quite a bit, and we we don't want to depress ourselves too much, but it's difficult times, but certainly there's opportunity here, and certainly I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to close the gap on this,
because it's
drive.
Exposed it.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, it's exposed it. We should be able to fix it. My worry is snooze. That's my worry. My worry is that it's exposed it. We'll have pain. Politicians will try and get over the next sort of 6 months to 9 months, and we press snooze again with one or two exceptions. That is my worry.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly, I suppose, look for some of our future episodes, we're going to dive a little bit more into the grid side and try and unpack them a little bit from different angles. But I suppose looking at the next kind of, for lack of another word, the battlefields going forward, whether it's looking at the minerals, looking at fertilizers, looking at shipping routes. I think that's something that would be worth just kind of driving a little bit deeper. Maybe we bring in some speakers in the future, maybe
so
around
value
those
chains within the energy systems and our food systems, and the it's the pinch points. It's going back to which pinch points or bottlenecks could someone in 10 years' time impact out. If we've sorted this out, it's a bit like chasing the constraint. Yeah. When's it's like we've sorted that and now it moves somewhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And God forbid, I've seen Mr. Orange again referencing back to Greenland, and I suppose his eye is on the ball and looking at the next battlefield when it comes to that mineral side. But how do we navigate the politics for the next one to make sure that we don't get in the position we are with the likes of the Middle East? But let's dive into leave that for the next episode or the next few down the line. Again, thank you for everyone for joining us today. It's been certainly a turbulent couple of weeks and months looking at the geopolitics, so hopefully this gives you a little bit of background into it. John, any further thoughts from you?
Just that I think it's being involved in energy is never boring.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be disheartening sometimes, but it's never boring. But it continually underlines to me how important it is, how linked it is to wealth, affluence, bringing people out of poverty. It is absolutely the most important thing. If you don't have energy or plentiful energy, you don't have a healthy economy. And I think, therefore, it has to be an absolute strategic thing for the government. This is exposed. The last couple of months has exposed the cracks, and we need to basically face up with them. And if it means a cost, we need to say, is that the cost of resilience? So I definitely to do that. Also like to thank again the team behind the cameras.
Yes.
Everyone. I'll
Absolutely.
give you all a wave. There we go. So yeah, I'd like to thank everyone for that. I thought it's been a really interesting chat, and we're looking forward. In a few weeks' time,
got a busy little period coming up. We're back on the conference circuit.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to Wind Energy Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. Wind Energy Ireland is coming up at the end of May, and I think we have a little bit something special in there. And John is going to expose me to a little bit more resilience when it comes to metal.
Yes, So if anyone is going to Wind Energy Ireland, and you've got the Monday night free, which is the 25th.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, we've got a ReVolting Podcast outing
to
the American rock band called Clutch, being supported by the Belfast band. Bloody hell.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, put it in the show notes. That's terrible because my mate is going, absolutely loves them. 10 Ton Slug.
10-ton slug.
There we go. How can I forget that?
No, looking forward to it.
So if anyone's going, let us know. Get yourself a ticket because our budgets don't go that far. But basically connect with Una and I, and we'll all get a Guinness before we go
Absolutely.
for it. So, otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you at Wind Energy. Oh, and before that or after that.
Before that, we have All Energy as well in Glasgow.
Yep. And me personally, I'm chairing a port session at Synergy in Nantes.
Yes, very nice.
So, and that's going to be exciting because, of course, the French auctions have combined to about 10 gigawatts.
Yep.
Of they're going in the auction.
Really
so that'll be quite exciting. So yeah, we're full on into the conference.
And I can't not mention our UK Global Offshore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Our home.
Our home will be in, I think it's mid-June. We're going to Manchester again.
Manchester.
Yes. So it's always a very, very vibrant city, and looking forward to meeting everyone there again. But so look, as I say, give us a shout if you're going to be attending any of these events. Certainly, I think we need to get everyone to subscribe to make sure everyone. I'm going to hit this one. John usually does it, but click the link below, subscribe. And we're really looking forward to meeting you out in the circuit, and looking forward to our next event. I think it's going to be a really good discussion over the next couple of weeks and months with what we've got lined up. So I'm Una Brosnan of the ReVolting Podcast.
I'm John MaCaskill. So keep the rotors turning and the heads banging, and we'll see you soon.